Hello, everyone. I know your secret fantasy is to spend more time with auditors. Yes, it's your favorite pastime, spending it with us, but honestly, we'd rather do it over a good meal, over happy hour, or something like that, rather than actually doing testing. So, what I've done is compiled the top 5 ways that we typically find clients spend more time with us and not because you want to. So I'm going to share with you what not to do. So number 5, the most typical thing that we see is the belief that it's a paperless environment. That's a myth in SOX and in internal audit. In particular, we commonly see evidence or support it's not readily available or it's in your personal email account. It takes you time to sort through your emails when we ask for, did you review such and such a reconciliation? And you'll say, yes, I sent an email and I asked a bunch of great questions. And then our follow-up question is, please show me. And if you're like most of us, we get lots of email, we file it. I file things in very safe places and never remember what that safe place is. So the risk then is that you're going to lose the historical information. Imagine you're the controller, you get promoted to VP Finance, you get promoted to CFO, you're the sole source of this information. No one else has it. So the best practice that we consistently tell our clients, print and or save the supporting approval, explanation, exception, reports, transactions, invoice, whatever it is in a centralized folder, whether it's Q1, name it, something so that it's easy for you to get to, or sometimes we realize that spreadsheets, some of these things are really big and they're not in soft copy. Stick it in a SOX binder so that you can easily find it in the future. Number 4. The procedures don't agree with documented process. Really common where the narratives or the flowcharts, they inaccurately describe the procedures or the controls that you're performing, or they're incomplete. And this isn't it just happens because, let's say, in first quarter, we implemented something, you implemented something, and it worked fine for first quarter, but then second quarter, you found a better process, a better way of doing it, a better report. You make some changes to it, and now the documentation doesn't agree. What happens as auditors is, unfortunately, we weren't there when it happened. So when we pull up a control language and we ask you, oh, it looks like you pull up the AR aging from this particular system, and this is the report name, and then you say, no, I don't use that report. I don't use that system anymore. It throws everybody off, and now our procedures don't match, and we have to spend more time with you. So our best practice suggestion is to review the process narratives or the flowcharts in detail and provide comments where it's needed. So if you aren't the owner of that particular narrative and you notice something around the process or the control that needs tweaking, let someone know. Or if you do own it, then update the narratives or the flowcharts. It will save you that 5-10 minutes of updating right as things are happening. Will save us time 2 or 3 months later when we're all retracing why doesn't this control match up with what you're doing. Number 3. Supporting documents aren't consistent or aren't complete. So we commonly see supporting documents that doesn't fit the story. So imagine that someone goes on a leave of absence. They've taken 6 months off to travel the world, and now the reviewer has transferred to a different person. And when you present the documents to us for review and approval, we look at the title, and the title, the controller should have been the one reviewing, but now it's the assistant controller. Perfectly good reason why the assistant controller is doing it, but the supporting documents don't match with that. Worse yet, we're missing screenshots, reports, or anything that supports that explanation. So imagine that you're telling a story, you're explaining to someone why this control is effective. As they look at the documents, if the puzzle pieces don't fit together, they're going to ask questions. So the best practice recommendation is, imagine you're the third person walking in and you hand them a package. As that third person, as you look through each of these documents, could you understand it? So a third person should be able to look at your work, understand the trail of events, And if that particular period, the controller is gone off to Tahiti or something, write a note that says, controller is out of the office. This was delegated to assistant controller. Explain it, describe it, tell us why it's okay. That's all we need to know. Number 3 is done. Number 2, formula errors. Oh my gosh, we see so often files, documents, spreadsheets, they contain formula errors. And sometimes those formula errors don't mean anything. Maybe it's to the side. But what that does is it leads us to believe maybe your review wasn't sufficient. Worse yet, the formulas do matter and it throws everything off. So what we suggest is build in cross-checks in that spreadsheet. We know typically it's commission spreadsheets, it's bonus spreadsheets that are linked to multiple places, and it's so easy for someone to fat finger, accidentally delete a cell, and now it causes errors throughout that spreadsheet. And we know that you have diligence. You've done this. It's just that one error that we found, and that leads us to start to pull, turn over the rocks, do a lot more work, and we don't really want to have to do that either. So our suggestions is scan through the cells, check the formulas or where things are hard-coded for accuracy, and then lock or password protect certain cells, certain spreadsheets, so that it prevents anyone just from reading, number one, getting access to confidential information, but accidentally deleting a particular formula that you've worked so hard to put together. And finally, drum roll please, ta-da-da-da! No or limited evidence of review. This is getting all of our clients, and I know it's very painful because we know that you do your work really well, but when we don't see initials or signatures or dates, when we don't see its non-existent or vague wording of the procedures that you reviewed. An example, if you were looking at a bank reconciliation and there is an outstanding check that's been here for 6 months, you probably asked about it the first month. And if you just wrote, asked about this, so-and-so moved, this check hasn't cleared yet, will clear next month, something, that would help. When we see no evidence and there's a reconciling item or something there that begs the question, again, then we think, did you really review it or did you just sign something to push it out the door? So sign and date the final version, write brief notes of the procedures that were performed whenever possible, and identify the items that you reviewed. Circle it, doodle it, box it, tick marks, do something just to show us that you've asked questions, or even writing not material, past, ask the question, here's the result, something, help us out here. So here's a quick recap. The 5 ways that you can spend more time with auditors and you really don't want to. Number 5, not saving evidence, not having a paper trail, really bad. Number 4, your procedures or your controls, what you're doing doesn't match what's been documented. Number 3, supporting documents are inconsistent. The story that you've told and the documents that you're presenting don't match each other. Number 2, formula errors. Finding formula errors in Excel spreadsheet tells us maybe you didn't review as closely as you should have, even if it's just a mistake. And number 1, not having evidence of your review. We know you do the review, now write it down. Put squiggles, put doodles, do something, help us out here so that we can spend more time together, but in more enjoyable environment, like over a good meal, over happy hour, instead of having to dig through support and get past socks. Have a great day.